Alright, I've seen a lot of videos, people posting on handmade tattoo machines. Most of them are done on not CNC'd, but they're done with a mill or a lathe. These are real handmade tattoo machines. I do not have any machining equipment other than a little wood workshop. Bandsaw, drill press, some sanders, torches. I've had some pictures of this one. I'm still working on it. I've had it polished and blued. It started rusting through again. So I've got to redo this one. It's the bearing machine. Yes, it is a little heavy, but I had it set up as a color packer. Works really good. Pretty much single pass, like a 15 mag. I've had this one posted on there before. It works, but not very well. So I've had many failures, especially with that one. Geometry that's one of my, I think that's my very first machine. The geometry on it's really wrong. It's before I started really learning mathematics and geometry of a tattoo machine. There's a little wood machine that I was working on. That one didn't work too well either. I had a little idea with this oversized chain link. I'm not sure what the material's made of, but it was not easy to drill. I ended up breaking a drill bit in it. It's overheating. Whatever it's made out of, it's really hard, and that didn't work too well. These machines are some, well, frames are some that I've been working on trying to put together. It's a aluminum side plate, the steel spring deck and base. This here's my latest brass seahorses, single coil. Will be a RCA only. I've still got to finish the coil. Got it set up as a shader. It's somewhat of a long stroke. There's a left-hand machine I made. It's a brass side plate, steel base, got a 10 wrap 22 gauge, the 22 capacitor. Originally found an Indian head belt buckle for that, and you've got to be very careful of what material you use, because as soon as I started soldering it, it started bubbling up on me. It was I don't know, probably brass plated pewter or some kind of powdered metal. This machine's a solid copper single coil. I believe I got a 45 capacitor on here. This one is pretty heavy as well. A lot of my machines are. Some of them are pretty light. As you can see, I'm trying not to do any steel frames anymore. This one is a double coil. It's all brass. I've still got some cleaning up to do on this one, polishing it. These are Baltimore Street Irons 1 inch Fat Bastard 3/8 T-top. 7.5 in the front and 8 in the back. 22 microfarad capacitor. That one there came from this pot holder. So you can see the parts here. Best way I found to get brass, any kind of brass castings, just go to Goodwill. You get stuff pretty cheap. I've got a bunch of spare stuff here, scrap pieces of iron or aluminum, some aluminum diamond plate, some nickel coated copper, some stainless steel, whole bag of just brass stuff from Goodwill. You got to make sure that it's real brass, not just brass plated tin, or bring a magnet with you, small magnet, so you can test it, make sure it's not steel. This here is a candle holder, which is where I got that one from. Cut it off of here. Let's see here. It was kind of like that. Had the other. That's the piece I cut off. Right here is where the little candle holder was at. My Dremel. I do all my contact posts by hand. It's not that hard. And here's one of my finished ones. Just a little piece of heat shrink at the end. camera to work right. This is where I do all my soldering for the coils. A little piece of wood, just a little cheap soldering gun. Capacitors. Springs and washers. RCA adapters. And my little parts and some fiber washers. Armature bars. Some more of my contact screws that I've made. Some of my RCA adapters made from coins, tokens, some other just miscellaneous parts, some inch and a quarter hex head, coil cores, brass washers, copper washers, some wing nuts, some coils, heat shrink. That's all the parts off my bearing machine. Cigar wraps. Another frame I was working on, the aluminum, just a cheap frame that I inlaid their engraving with some silver solder and blued it. Don't care for these stamped frames, they're not very straight. And this is not one of my frames, of course, as you can see here. It's a iron workhorse I bought from a friend of mine. Cleaned it up. I've got to put some coils that actually fit on here. They had inch and a quarter coils. That's a metric machine, which I found out they're made in Australia. Voltmeter. There's my torches. Steel plate I've got here, sitting on a trash can where I can do all my soldering. Nothing fancy back here, just a old bandsaw, drill press, belt sander. Let's do the finer sanding. Let's see if I can get this into some light. Here's a little coil winding machine. It can be a little bit of a pain in the butt sometimes because it's pretty small, but it works. Hand crank. Working on building a foundry. There's my little experimental torch. This is my barrel that I'll be using. Start doing some casts, cast machine frames. This was the intended frame for my left-hand machine. As you can see right here is where it started bubbling up everywhere. That didn't work, so I had to go to something else. Sometimes that happens when you're using spare parts and just stuff you find to create a tattoo machine. That's about it. These are all the machines I've been working on in my spare time. This is a rebuild. I like the way that turned out. Set up as a liner. It's a cast machine, blued with copper accents. Warlock cigar wraps. I have some other machines I've redone. I don't have them here with me. I've seen some videos on people using spoons, knives, forks, handles. There's another things that you can find at Goodwill, silver plated. Silverware. It's actually brass. But they're pretty thin, so if you're going to use silverware, make sure your handles are pretty thick. Because those will bend quite easily. I can bend that with one hand. That's not too good for your binding post. You don't want it to move too much. I've got, there's some copper bar. I believe that's what I made my base plate with a copper machine. They are pretty thick. That's about 3/8 or a ½ inch thick. The thicker your base, the more vibration it takes up. And that's it for now, but these are real handmade tattoo machines. Got any questions or comments, you know what to do.